Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by the Multifamily Conference. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have Seth Ferguson joining me here from Toronto today. He is a Chief Operating Officer at CPI Capital, a real estate investment firm that offers investment opportunities for Canadians and Americans by acquiring and improving underperforming apartment buildings. He's a 15-year veteran in the real estate investing industry. He used to host a cable TV real estate show. He's also launching a new real estate investing podcast called the Cool Shit Podcast, which will be airing, I guess, in February. And then he's also the founder of the Multifamily Conference. I'm sure many of you have seen that in the last couple of years. And interesting fun facts about Seth: he is a former professional and junior hockey referee. He plays the bagpipes, and he's a huge history nerd. So thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. I guess you were sent the embarrassing bio with all
You're like,
the
wait, we didn't go through
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, obviously you have lots of experience in the last 15-ish years. Can you talk a little bit about what you were doing before real estate investing came into the picture and really like how that came into the picture?
Oh yeah, 100%. So kind of like you said, I was doing hockey and that was my first love. And that is still my passion. And if I could do hockey as a full-time job, I would stop everything and hop over and continue. So I was doing hockey, went down to the States, lived out of a suitcase for a while,
Yeah.
traveling all around the country. I came back, got my real estate license
Yeah.
because I thought real estate agents, oh, you could set your own hours. It would be really flexible.
Yeah.
And then I could do hockey and sell houses at the same time.
Yeah.
Little did I know that you actually work a lot as a real estate agent
Yeah.
and you're
More than
always
most
on
people
call.
realize.
No, no. And so that was a wake up call. And I was doing really well at selling real estate, making some pretty good money.
Yeah.
And then I realized I had nothing left over at the end of the day. So the commissions would come in, and
Yeah.
then I was silly as a young guy. So I had the nice car. I
Of
had,
course.
this 4-bedroom house I was living in by myself. Like it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I realized I needed to start building some type of portfolio or pool of assets.
Yeah.
And that's when I discovered real estate investing.
So who introduced you to that specifically? Like obviously you now you're involved with CPI Capital, but was there someone on your journey that specifically was like, "Hey, what are you doing? You're spending all your money," or like how did that conversation come about?
No, that was my own realization because every month it was stressful because the mortgage payment was ridiculous, the car payment was ridiculous,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm making all this money, like the on paper I have all this money, but there's
Yeah.
nothing in the bank account. It's like,
Yeah.
where did I go wrong? And it wasn't really a specific person because nobody in my family was really investing in real estate. And none of the people I really knew were true real estate investors. Like one person would have like another property, but it wasn't
Yeah.
serious investing. Uh, so I really kind of learned. I went online and I remember I ordered this one course. I spent a couple grand on it and they shipped me a binder. It was a paper
Oh
binder
my
like
gosh.
this thick. And this $2,000, I think it was like 2 grand, 1,500
Yeah.
bucks. It was basically you flip through the pages. I was like, are you serious? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I read a couple books. Being Canadian, I read the basics, Don Campbell's books, and
Yeah.
that kind of got me going and in terms of educating myself. But yeah, it wasn't, I wish I had a person because I would have missed a whole bunch of mistakes, but that's the way
Yeah.
it goes.
No, that
Yeah.
makes sense. So then what was your first real estate investment? And then how did you ladder that to scaling into apartment buildings and multifamily?
Yeah, yeah. So the first one was a, duplex conversion. So my partner and I at the time, there was a duplex. It was like a 50s construction type of thing where they're rock solid, hurricane
Yeah.
proof, as I call them, and duplex conversion there. And then, you leverage that one to get the next one.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had some limiting beliefs because I thought you had to do everything on your own and you had to save up all the money and then do another property. I didn't
Yeah.
understand that you could actually get capital from other people and do more deals. I just didn't
Yeah.
know. And so that was a learning journey. And and in terms of the hop over to multifamily, I blame my son, who's now 7. because when he came along, everything changed in a
Yeah.
blink of an eye. And I realized that I'd made more money owning the real estate than I had selling the real estate, and I was doing well at that.
Yeah.
But I just realized, with my new goals, because I was a new father, I wanted to do a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and I worked out I'd have to own 1,000 houses to hit my real estate goal, and
Yeah.
like it just didn't make sense. So now I had to start exploring. Okay, well, does it make more sense to own office buildings, the mobile home parks, self storage,
Yeah.
retail? And then I discovered multifamily, and it made a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
And we can get into the reasons why, but that was kind of the catalyst.
Yeah, I always find it really interesting talking to people. I interviewed someone else earlier this week, and he kind of indicated industrial space, self-storage, strip malls, and then multifamily in that order of his preference. So I found
Yeah.
that just really interesting because you don't hear about warehousing quite as much, but that seems to be like an area of focus for him with like 30 years under his belt. So everyone's got kind of what they really love. And like from an economies of scale perspective, obviously buying like an apartment building with 100 units, it'd be a lot harder to buy 100 single family homes because you're going through that process 100 times when it comes to financing and tenanting and all of that stuff, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And industrial, that's a great business to be in.
Yeah.
I think that the thing for people to understand is there's a million different ways of making money in real estate. It's
Yeah.
just figuring out what best aligns with your goals. So when we're working with people, the number one thing we do is figure out, okay, what are we aiming for in 10 years?
Yeah.
We build that out so it's real, and then we work backwards because apartment buildings aren't for everybody, just
Yeah.
like strip malls aren't for everybody or
Yeah.
self-storage.
Yeah.
But until you know where you're going, you can't figure out a game plan, right? So that's
Yeah.
step number one.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Now, are you comfortable sharing what your portfolio looks like today?
Yeah. So with CPI, we're just under 1,000 units right now.
Yeah.
So we're currently working on a deal that's going to take us over 1,000. So we're all pretty excited with that.
Awesome.
And then obviously we have some big goals. Just with the way the market is right now,
Yeah.
we are in full buyer mode. So
Right.
we are ready to rock and roll in 2024.
Now, I know you mentioned Canada and the US. Are there any sweet spots that you're looking to focus on right now?
Yeah, so with CPI, we focus like right now we're doing a lot of hunting in Florida. That's where Paul Arbor, acquisitions director, is putting in a lot of work
Yeah.
in terms of our deal flow. And so Tampa's a market we really want to enter right now. We're also working Jacksonville, the periphery around there,
Yeah.
because Florida, like we really like the drivers in that market. We feel
Yeah.
there's a lot of runway left. I don't have to deal with snow. Like I have enough snow here in Toronto.
Yeah.
So with the
Landlord
with the
friendly.
portfolio, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
for those reasons, we focus there. But in the single family space, everything was in Ontario, and I got a firsthand experience in terms of rent control. I
Yeah.
decided that's not something I want to deal with anymore, and we could go on a 2-hour rant about rent control.
Yeah. I mean,
But
there's a lot of things
that's
about
another.
Ontario that aren't necessarily favorable.
Yeah,
So,
that's another episode by itself. Yeah.
yeah, no, I completely understand that. Now, obviously, you have done a lot in, the last 10, 15 years. What would you say you're most proud of or you feel like is maybe your biggest success?
This is going to sound yeah, I'd have to say the conference, to be honest. It's not even a deal related
Yeah.
because just the way we launched it, it was in the middle of the pandemic. Everybody said I was crazy,
Yeah.
like nobody was doing anything, and we pulled it off.
Yeah.
So the way the team did it, I'm proud of myself for doing it, but I'm more proud of everybody we work with
Yeah.
because they put in so much work to make that happen. And yeah, it's been really, really successful. Never would have thought, but like here we are.
Yeah. No,
So
I
I'd say
remember,
that the
I don't know if you
conference.
remember, I volunteered at it that first year and it felt
Yeah,
like everybody was coming out of hiding because it was kind of the first big event I'd been to throughout all of the pandemic, right? Like, and it's like some people wearing masks, some people weren't. Everyone's like, can we shake hands? We hug, like, what do we do here? Right. So it was a very interesting dynamic, but you started at a hockey arena north of
yeah.
the city and then obviously moving down to the convention center and, just being able to fill that up with some bigger names and stuff like that. Like that's pretty huge to go from year one to year two, right?
Oh yeah. Like in the second year, I think we had like 160,000 square feet, something like that.
Yeah.
Huge space. But interesting fact, do you know why we were at the hockey arena? Did I
I
tell you?
don't know.
Okay, so everything was locked down, right? the CAA Center was the only place that would sneak us in to actually look at the
Really?
venue during
Yeah.
the lockdowns. That hopefully nobody gets in trouble now. But the only venue that snuck us in. So
Wow.
that was the obviously we didn't tell them when we were doing the contract, but
Yeah.
that was our only option for
Yeah.
booking. So it was a really crazy time for everything.
Yeah.
And but yeah, we pulled it off. So
Yeah. And here
because of
we
people
are.
like you who helped
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Now, I guess going back, whether you want to talk about this in context of the multifamily conference or just real estate investing in general, what would you say is the biggest obstacle that you have faced, whether that comes to, again, scaling or launching an event in a pandemic?
Yeah, I think the biggest obstacle is myself, to be honest. Because I found, as you get to different levels, my own ignorance of things holds you back. So I'll give you the example. When I was breaking into the multifamily space and just educating myself, I was invited to a real estate investing workshop. It was the guy I interviewed on my old podcast.
Hmm.
Went down to Philadelphia, maxed out my credit card because like my life had blown up at that point when it was just I lost everything.
Yeah.
And so I maxed out the credit card. I got in the room and I didn't belong there because it was full of real estate syndicators, fund managers. These people were raising a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I had no idea this world existed in real estate. But that like 3 days opened my eyes to what the other side of the real estate fence is all
Yeah.
about. But before that, I had no idea,
Yeah.
totally ignorant. And I find as I keep progressing in terms of whether it's building up the conference or building up real estate, each time I hit a new level, it's like you're opening your eyes again because you don't see what's really there.
Yeah.
The good example I use is the night sky. You look up in Toronto at the night sky, you see a couple stars.
Yeah.
You go way up a couple hours to Bob Cajun,
Yeah.
you're looking at the same sky. You're just seeing different things in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's every time it blows my mind because there's always something new that you don't know.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, there was one younger investor actually that I spoke to, and his philosophy is that you would try to learn from people that are always like one or two steps ahead of you, not necessarily 20 steps ahead, because they can kind of give you some of those tangible steps to kind of continue along your pace, where it can be just maybe unachievable or unrealistic if you're trying to, compare yourself to a Grant Cardone or something like that,
Oh,
right?
for,
So,
for, for sure. I might push back a little bit on that though. We'll get some controversy in the podcast. This is good. Yeah, I might push back a little bit because for me personally, I find it helpful to speak with the guys who are like 10 steps ahead
yeah,
because this is what I've kind of discovered as we scale. Um, because on the conference side, we're scaling rapidly with it.
yeah,
So if I'm looking at somebody who's one or two steps ahead, their systems are built for that size.
yeah, I get it.
Somebody 10 steps ahead, their systems are very different. So the thing I've learned is, well, why not just build a foundation for the winning system
Yeah,
now and
yeah,
not have to switch halfway through?
yeah,
So in terms of an efficiency standpoint and not having to break everything down and rebuild it, um, talking with people who are, filling stadiums with people, like that's who I want to talk to
yeah,
because that's where we're going anyway. So might as well
yeah,
just start learning right now. So
yeah.
yeah, but that's just my personal preference.
Yeah, no, I can understand that completely. I mean, just I had my own business for 18 years and I had a lot of different mentors and coaches. And one of my mentors that I felt like resonated the most literally broke down my whole business and kind of gave me an action plan like, do this, stop doing this, do more of this. And
Yeah.
it was very tactical and it helped me with my roadmap to get where I wanted to go. But then I did the same mentorship program again a few years later. I was partnered up with the CEO of Edelman, so like a huge global PR
Mhm.
firm. And it was like, as a CEO of a company that big, she just couldn't understand any of the issues that I would have as like a small business owner, right?
Yeah.
So when I would talk to her about things, it's like she doesn't deal with stuff like that, right? So she was a great lady, had great conversations, but it didn't give me that tangible stuff that I could go back and actually like improve in my business. So I
Oh
see
yeah.
value on like both sides of the fence.
Oh yeah, for sure. And especially like what we find, like we try and run our company like the least corporate you can get.
Yeah,
And so if somebody's coming, because we talk with people all the time and they're coming from a very corporate background,
yeah,
even when we're hiring people,
yeah,
it generally doesn't work out because they're used to these rigid systems and
yeah.
we try to have none of that
But
stuff.
that's what's nice about events, right? Like that's what my business was. I was in events. So you can really like create your reality and kind of think outside the box, right? So it's
Yeah,
kind of nice to have that
100%.
blend. But real estate
Yeah.
investors are the exact same way, right? Like a lot of them may not have formal educations or they're trying to leave the corporate career. So yeah, I can see how that works well. Now, in terms of lessons and things like that, is there anything that you think you know now that, maybe you learned a lesson the hard way, and if you'd known that, you would have gone and done something differently with that same level of knowledge?
There are so many mistakes. I'll give you probably the most entertaining example, and this will apply to a lot of newer investors starting out. So when I was in the single family investing space, I was working with my partner at the time, and we were acquiring some properties, and so we didn't have anything written down on paper. Uh, and a lot of people end up investing with partners and getting into things like this. So you don't have anything on paper.
The
It's just a
handshake.
handshake agreement. Maybe you're living with somebody or you're best friends with somebody. Oh no, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, like don't do
Well,
that.
when all the money disappears from the bank account and and then there's negative dollars in the bank account and
Mm,
all the mortgages start bouncing
oh
and
no.
all this kind of stuff
Yeah.
and you end up in the court system. If you have nothing on paper, you're screwed.
Hmm.
So my that was the biggest mistake I ever made.
Yeah.
Also, making sure you have like two signers on things, so one person can't take all the money out of the bank account
Yeah.
definitely helps too. So just not speaking with a lawyer and being like, hey, listen, I want to invest in these properties with this person. What do we need to put on paper to make sure everybody's protected?
Yeah.
Because it happens sometimes you get in a deal, one partner starts doing things that can jeopardize the deal, or they're non-responsive, they disappear
Yeah.
for months, and you need them to sign on things. You need to have shotgun provisions or other types of clauses in there to make
Yeah.
sure not only you're protected, they're protected, but also think of the poor tenants in this property. And things are going right. In one property, we had a flood, like
Yeah.
the basement flooded. And if one person's taking on money, who's going to pay for it? So all
Yeah.
this stuff has to be taken care of well ahead of time.
Yeah.
Don't be like me and just make sure you speak with a lawyer.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I mean, even my business, that's something that we found. Like we had a bad experience where we needed a signature. That manager was traveling, can't you just take this email? And ultimately, because we didn't have the signature, that gave us no recourse when, everything was booked and planned, and then they canceled on us a few times in a row.
Yep.
So we learned from that. And then where it saved us is that we actually started working with a real estate developer of all things. So this is years and years ago, but
Yeah.
they build luxury student residences all around the country. And we were hired just for like a 2-day move-in type of PR campaign. And they were so far behind in construction. We were like moving students into a construction zone. And basically, what should have been 2 days went on continuously for 5 months. And we hired like hundreds of people in like short periods of time. So we're getting money, we're getting money. Then all of a sudden, we're not getting money. So at this point, they owed us, I don't know, 250 or $300,000. And everything kind of got put on hold. And it got to the point that like we filed a lawsuit, they ignored it. And ultimately, how we got money is we started to share some information about it on social and reviews and stuff like that. And within like a day, it's like, can you meet me tomorrow? And like
Yeah.
it was wired to us by the Friday. Like it was just, we had to, go rogue on them, right? But we
Yeah.
tried, but it's because we had that first signature that it protected us, and we could have been out like a very significant amount of money. So always get it
Yeah.
on paper.
Always, always, always. And
Yeah.
if you have a good conversation with somebody, like send an email later summarizing the
Always.
conversation because,
Yes, always. Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah, I'm the
yeah.
same way. Per our conversation, Yeah, I'm the
Yes.
exact same way. So on that note, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
The Multifamily Conference is back, May 24th to 26th at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. Get your tickets at multifamilyconference.ca. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. I value transparency, integrity, and trust. If you choose to work with me, you can be assured that business will be conducted honestly and openly. Time is of the essence in this industry, so you can expect nothing short of quick, clear communication from me. I'll keep you informed every step of the way so you feel comfortable throughout this entire process. Our homes are where we eat, sleep, relax, and play. My clients' best interests are at the heart of everything I do. And with this said, my service to you doesn't end when the transaction does. As your realtor, I'll not only help you buy and sell your property, I'll also educate and support you along the way. I want to help you fulfill your goal of home ownership and become your trusted real estate resource for life. I can't wait to share my passion for real estate with you. More importantly, to find you the perfect house to turn into your home. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in Durham region or Toronto? Let's chat. Hey everybody, welcome.
Who's the sponsor? Do we have to plug them?
I don't know who the sponsor will be at this point. I have like February and March confirmed, and then
okay.
The rest of the.
I was going to work it in, but I guess not.
Yeah, I know. I don't usually have them like that far in advance yet, unfortunately. So
all good.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Seth Ferguson here with me today. He's sharing about all the crazy things that have happened to him as a real estate investor, which leads to my next question. What is the craziest thing that you think has ever happened to you as a real estate investor, or maybe even someone that's planning real estate investing events?
Oh man. Yeah, well, I think on the event side, COVID was the craziest thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. But in terms of real estate, I remember cleaning out this one property. My dad had somehow got this duplex kind of thing, and the tenant wasn't paying, and the tenant moved out, and we went to clean up, and I could not believe the mess that was left behind. There was shit in the toilets, dirty like diapers everywhere. There were needles. Like it was.
That's actually really sad when you think like diapers and needles. Like,
oh, well, that's the thing. And everything was left, right? So like you have toys there. So you've got like this little like jungle gym kind of thing for obviously a little kid, and then under the couch is a bunch of needles.
Yeah,
it was
that's messed up.
Sick.
Yeah.
And and I think that's the craziest sight I've ever seen in there, because you're just like, who is this person and what are they doing with the child? It was really scary. So that kind of showed me what kind of goes on in some unstable households.
I understand. You can kind of see how just some people live that would be so unfathomable to maybe how your day-to-day life is, right? So I know you talked about going back to things like mentorship and coaching. You have been in these big rooms. What would you say is some of the best advice you've been given from someone that is very successful?
Oh man, so much. I think that if I can summarize it, because you get little tidbits from everybody. The biggest thing I've learned is that the bigger the project, the easier it gets. And this applies to if you're going from a 10-unit building to a 40-unit building, or a 100 to 300. And now I've got some friends just buying like 500 to 1,000 unit portfolios at a time. And they will never go back to a 200-unit building because doing the portfolio is so much easier. Because I think there's a couple of things at play there. Number one, it's bigger. So the sex appeal is there. It's more exciting. And the bigger and more exciting something is, the easier it is to sell, either to raise money for, or on the flip side, for events for the conference. If I ran a 200-person conference, I would just like, it wouldn't be exciting. But because we went big, more people like get involved, and it just makes it easier. So if I could go back in a time machine to visit my 20-year-old self, I would just tell myself, skip doing the houses, go right into the big stuff. And you're going to skip like a decade of frustration. And it's just, So biggest piece of advice, just go bigger.
Yeah. It's just the irony in it, right? Like no one coming into it would necessarily think that, right? But even with me, like I look back at some of the purchases I made, and they're kind of the opportunities at hand. Multifamily is just not even on my radar whatsoever, right? So I think that's part of the learning and getting to know people and building all those connections, right?
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of people get intimidated, right? So they think, oh, I got to go small because I'm just getting started. But when you like, this is how I break it down. if you do a small, like single family home deal versus an apartment building,
Yeah.
single family home deal, cash flow is non-existent. You probably have to manage it yourself. So you're going to make a ton of rookie mistakes.
Yeah.
The financing is going to suck on it. But then if you go to the flip side with an apartment building, you can hire a professional property manager because now
Yeah.
you have more cash flow. You can probably bring on a partner who's done it before because there's more meat on the bone. Somebody moves out, your revenue doesn't disappear because you have more units.
Yeah.
So I argue that the apartment building is a safer investment for a
Yeah.
new person rather than like the single family home, which is the exact reverse of the way most people think.
Yeah. No, I can understand that completely. Now, just looking at, where you are and where you want to be, is there anything that you would define as your financial freedom number, whether that's cash flow, number of doors? Like, are you there already?
No, no, definitely not even close to my goal yet. Like we've got some pretty big goals, and we talk internally. We always talk about when we buy the helicopter, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's getting there. No, I think I don't necessarily have a set number in mind. I really more think about it in terms of people we impact, because I've kind of learned the more people you can help and impact, the more it pushes you. So I've got a goal to help get 10,000 people involved in real estate investing. And I know for a fact, once we hit number 10,000 in that, like money's never going to be an issue ever again because
Yeah.
I've given the value to the community and then it's going to come back to me. But in terms of numbers, like obviously $1 billion is like the B number is nice, not in terms of AUM, but in terms of net worth would be amazing.
Yeah.
And that's certainly like the big, hairy, audacious goal down the road.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the name of this podcast is Inspired to Invest. So I always
Yeah.
like to ask people I'm interviewing if they have a particular quote that motivates or inspires them.
Oh, this is going to sound kind of corny because it's my own quote, but we use it all the time internally now. It's average people are too expensive. Right. And it applies to everything. So
Yeah.
we apply it to our hiring practices. So, or even if you're a real estate investor and you're hiring an attorney
Yeah.
or working with a agent or whatever, if you hire the average person, you are going to lose so much and it's going to cost you so much.
Yeah.
So pay a little bit more. It's like Hormozy talks about this too. If you just pay 10% more, the better person you get is worth a 5 or a 10x.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's on the lending side, agent side, capital raising side, whatever professional service.
Yeah.
So now internally with us, we are always looking for outstanding people because when I think back, all of the average people we've worked with in the past ended up costing us money. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to throw my own quote, but like we've been
Yeah.
using it a
No, it
ton.
makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
obviously, how you translate that in your own business and your life, I think makes perfect sense. And it's good wisdom for anyone that could be tuning in. And I guess on that note, as we're wrapping up, is there anything in particular that you wanted to leave with anyone that could be watching or listening right now?
Yeah, the biggest thing is don't think about it too long, just act. And it not taking action and being scared and afraid has stopped way too many people from achieving their life goals,
Yeah.
especially with real estate investing. You can think about it as long as you want, but until you actually take action, do your first deal, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So if you're listening right now and you're on the fence, oh, I'd like to get in real estate, but I don't know, just do it.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you end up owning a piece of real estate, which over time is going to go up anyway. You'll
Yeah.
have learned a whole bunch of life lessons and you're going to be better off for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
is it going to be stressful? Yes. Are you going to sometimes cry? Yes. Is it going to
Yeah.
force you to learn new things? Yes, but those are all good things. So
Yeah.
nothing bad can happen.
Yeah. No, agreed. And I think just the way that the economy is going, it's the only way to really like inflation proof yourself. So I think you just have to do something because the average salaries these days are just not cutting it. Now, for anyone that wants to learn more about you or maybe the multifamily conference, what's the easiest way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, best thing to go for the conference is multifamilyconference.ca. And that is the portal into the whole crazy world of MFC.
Awesome. Well, we'll include all those details in the show notes below as well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be here for today. Anyone watching or listening, of course, thank you for your time as well. If you've liked this episode, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And you're following along at social at Inspire to Invest Podcast. And of course, remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again.
Thank you to the Multifamily Conference for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest.
The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.